This is Dan of Vagabond Buddha. I'm in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. Just finished my run and had some thoughts about the nature of consciousness. It's described in various ways, but I'm going to describe it through one of the paradigms that I've heard, one of the oldest paradigms, and that is the mind as a child, and the child's thoughts are seen by the parent. And the child is very upset about something. Who knows what? Maybe it wanted some candy or a toy, and the parent observes the upset. It's not a perfect analogy because in consciousness, the parent doesn't need to explain or teach the child, and parents often feel they need to explain things and teach the child. So it's not a perfect analogy, but the parent observes. A parent is an observational consciousness of which the child mind is perceived, and the perception of the parent is more complete. It's not so focused on the particular point of view, the moment that this toy needs to be played with, or candy, or I don't want to take my bath. Whatever the child is very connected to and feels very emotional about, the parent's not really doesn't have an opinion about any of that. It's just a garden in which a weed grows. The child gets to experience all the upset. And so pick your spiritual leader. A wise person, if you will, or is someone who lives in the more of the parental sort of consciousness. It's not attached to the upset of the moment. It's aware of it, that it has a mind, and the mind is thinking, but it doesn't have the pain of the child. And so that's an interesting paradigm, because everyone has it. Everyone has both. The concept of enlightenment is a consciousness of the parental consciousness being conscious of the child. That's maybe a base state of awareness that you can happen in a moment and leave just as quickly when the child plugs the parent back into the emotions. But if you can attain that separation of understanding that you are a space of a parent, and within that there's a child that is designing or attempting to control every aspect of your life and getting upset when things don't go the way you want, that's really what enlightenment is. And the reason that people find joy in that is because the pain of living literally is not getting what you want, which is something that only happens in child consciousness. The parent doesn't have that. It's not taking that position about, oh, I want this job or this car. Or all of the human emotions that are perceived as negative in human behavior, whether sociologically or religiously or whatever. Those are all thought movements that occur at the child level of consciousness. Even in modern psychology, I don't know how modern it is, but the idea of the id is child consciousness. Sorry about the wind. I'll try to block the speaker a little bit. And for me, the reason I mention it is, for me, it raises a very real possibility that when spiritual leaders talk about Father or Mother or God, they're talking about, one way you can perceive that, the Father and the Son, is consciousness. And of course, God is a parental kind of consciousness, if you follow the reasoning, because everything exists on earth, and if God is all-powerful, he or she has the ability to stop all negative. But he or she would have to take a position about what's bad and stop it. And that's not how God operates. His religion, in religion, God is taught as choice. People have choice, and so they have that, of course, could mean action. They take action by choice, and then any suffering that arises out of those choices from a child consciousness is self-realized suffering, or hell on earth. Any peace that arises out of enlightenment or parent consciousness, if you will, or God consciousness, is heaven on earth. And so, in that regard, we're all the son or daughters of God. And the words we choose to speak, the thoughts we choose to have, the consciousness we choose to primarily inhabit, decides whether we're living in heaven or hell on earth. And so for me, it's interesting because if you think about, if you were a spiritual leader and it were 2,000 years ago, you maybe fumbled about for 50 years trying to explain this consciousness that you found, or parental or God consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And at some point you realize that you're talking to children, and, if you will, you're sharing pearls before swine, and you may begin to realize that you can't even use the same language. You can't talk about consciousness, or you can't say that heaven's available to everyone. That you can't call yourself the son of or daughter of God, and so you make up a vocabulary in the universe where you can teach and words you can use. And to me, that is interesting, because the words you would pick to describe the same thing would be different based on your language. And so that's why we see that may be why, no conclusions here, just an observational sense, that may be why we see such reflections across the various texts of religion, because they were really talking about the same heaven on earth, and hell, and how we get to choose our own existence, and how we affect the others around us, which Which brings up the final thing that all that made me think, and that's this idea that God thinks something is good and something else is bad, and that you need to figure that out and live your life in the good way. And what you may occur to you is, pick your religion. The God consciousness needs the child in order to teach how not to be. The child consciousness is as important as the God consciousness. If you see consciousness in an evolutional sense or an improving sense, in other words, humans becoming better as they become more aware, if you see consciousness as an evolving energy, then you need both the God and the child in order to teach and learn. And it's kind of hard for someone who lives in a God consciousness primarily to think that, wait, we need these political and religious, some religious, mostly not, leaders that are messed up in order to learn something. Imagine if there was no child consciousness. What would the contrast be that we could see? And so it's the contrast itself that is, I don't know if you want to call it the schoolyard. We need the bully in the schoolyard so we can imagine what comes next. We can imagine the non-bully. And and that, that also lines up with religious conversation, the idea that love your enemy as much as yourself. For your enemy is giving such a bright line for you to understand how not to be. And it explains why God allows aberrant behavior and aberrant people, if you believe in God. Okay, so anyway, I was running today in Mexico, and a bunch of those thoughts came through my head and thought I'd share them. And good morning, Mr. Rooster. Yeah, so everything is okay. Everything is how it's meant to be, and everything's how it's supposed to be. And if you're getting upset about aberrant behavior, maybe you're internalizing it. Maybe you're, maybe the aberrant behavior is you're not learning from it. If you're internalizing that pain of the contrast of good thoughts, good behavior, and you're seeing it, and you're seeing otherwise in the evidence around you, and it's making you question God, or question goodness, or question yourself, and you feel, if you're living with that anger, if you're living with upset over anything really, because if you're looking at people who are living as child consciousness, and it's bringing you there. Who is the teacher and who's the child? I mean, frankly, maybe it's time to be an adult. Children will be children, and if you're going to become one when children are children, maybe you're a child. All right, a little bit of a spanking there for you if you've been on the road to pain. If you've known joy and now you feel pain, it's time to come back to the joy. All right, have a great day.